Nobody in that shop expected the old man to know what he was looking at. They were wrong about that. They were wrong about everything. The bell above the door of Hargrove's Firearms and Supply had been ringing since 8 in the morning, and by 11:30 the shop was buzzing with its usual Saturday crowd, young men in tactical vests they'd never worn in the field, weekend hobbyists comparing barrel lengths like they were selecting fine wine, and 2 employees behind the counter, who had long since mastered the art of looking busy while doing very little. That was the world Marcus Webb walked into on a cool October morning, moving slowly, one hand resting on a plain wooden cane, his other hand tucked into the pocket of a faded canvas jacket that had seen better decades. He was 81 years old. He walked like it. His white hair sat flat against his head, his face carved with lines the way old riverbeds are carved by years of running water, deep, permanent, honest. He wore no pins, no patches, no insignia of any kind, just the jacket worn dark at the elbows and a quiet that surrounded him like a second skin. Before I tell you what happened next, drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. I genuinely love knowing who's listening to these stories. The first laugh came from a young employee named Derek, 23, broad-shouldered and carrying the particular confidence that comes from never having been truly tested. Marcus had paused in front of the glass case housing a row of classic revolvers, leaning forward slightly to study one of them. A Smith & Wesson Model 29, blued steel, 6-inch barrel, the kind of weapon that demanded respect simply by existing. Derek slid over with the practiced glide of someone who'd decided the outcome of a conversation before it started. "You need help finding something, sir?" The word sir landed with a smirk beneath it, the kind that says sir but means old-timer. "Just looking at this Model 29, Marcus said. His voice was low, unhurried, the way a man speaks when he stopped caring what people thought of him around 1987. Derek tilted his head. "That's a serious piece. Not really a beginner's firearm." He paused for effect. "You familiar with large caliber revolvers?" The shop didn't go quiet all at once. It went quiet in pieces, the way a room does when something is about to happen that everyone will remember. A man 2 cases down glanced up. A teenager near the rifle wall stopped pretending to read a brochure. Marcus straightened slowly, his fingers wrapping around the handle of his cane. He looked at Derek the way you might look at a weather forecast that's already been proven wrong. "I've been familiar with it since before your parents met," he said simply, and turned back to the case. The laugh that followed was Derek's, and it was joined by a second employee named Cody, who'd been listening from behind a display of holsters. "No offense, man, but these things have real kick. I just don't want you getting hurt." The emphasis on hurt was deliberate, performative, designed for the small audience that had gathered around them the way people gather around minor accidents, hoping to see something without getting involved. What none of them knew, what none of them could have seen, was the story living inside that jacket, inside that silence, inside the man holding the cane with a grip steadier than anything in the room. Marcus said nothing. He simply waited. The back door opened. Raymond Hargrove was 64 years old, built square and solid, with the kind of silver beard that looked less like a style choice and more like something that had simply earned its place over time. He had owned this shop for 31 years. He had served 2 tours in Vietnam and 1 in the early Gulf conflict before that chapter of his life closed. He carried his history the same way Marcus carried his, quietly, without decoration, without need for applause. He came through the door reading something on a clipboard, but he stopped when he saw the old man by the revolver case. Stopped completely. The clipboard lowered. Something shifted in Raymond's face. The professional distance dissolved and something older, more fundamental took its place. He crossed the shop floor in 9 steps. "Marcus Webb," he said. Not a question. A recognition. The old man turned, and for the first time since entering the shop, something moved in his expression, a flicker of warmth behind the reserve, the way an ember glows brighter when someone cups their hands around it. "Raymond," he said. Raymond Hargrove extended his hand, and when Marcus took it, Raymond covered their clasped hands with his left, the way men do when a handshake isn't enough. "Sir," he said quietly, firmly, "it is an honor to have you in this store." The shop had gone completely still now. Derek and Cody stood frozen behind the counter, the smirks erased, replaced with the blank expression of people trying to recalibrate everything they thought they understood about the last 10 minutes. Raymond turned to his staff, and his voice carried the specific weight of a man who rarely needed to raise it. This man commanded a special forces unit in Vietnam for 3 years. He went back in as an advisor during the Gulf and trained half the men who trained your instructors. He paused, letting that settle. He has forgotten more about firearms than either of you will learn in your careers. And he walked through that door as a customer. The silence stretched long enough to become uncomfortable. Then Raymond turned back to Marcus and said, in a tone that brooked absolutely no argument, "What can I show you today, sir? Because whatever you want, it's on me." Marcus looked at him for a moment, then looked back at the Model 29 in the case. "That one," he said. "My grandson turns 18 next week. I want him to learn on something that won't let him forget it. Matters." Something passed through the room. Not just through the customers or the staff, but through the building itself, through the walls and the glass cases and the cold October air pressing against the windows. It was the feeling of a lesson being taught without a single word of instruction. Derek stepped forward. His voice had lost every trace of performance. "Sir, I'm sorry. I didn't..." He stopped, because there wasn't a sentence in him that would finish properly. Marcus looked at him the way you look at someone young enough that the world hasn't finished with them yet. "You didn't know," he said. "Not absolution, not condemnation, just truth. Most people don't. That's not always their fault." He paused. "But it's always their responsibility to ask before they assume." Derek nodded. He would think about those words for years. Raymond unlocked the case himself, lifted the Model 29 with both hands and placed it on the counter in front of Marcus like an offering. The two old men stood together over the weapon, speaking in the low, precise language of people who understand what they're discussing, and the shop moved quietly around them, respectful, humbled, recalibrated. Before Marcus left that afternoon, 3 customers asked Raymond who he was. Raymond told them. Every time, because dignity doesn't announce itself. It doesn't wear medals to the grocery store or wave its history in front of strangers asking for proof. It simply walks through the door with a cane and a canvas jacket and waits, patient as stone, steady as old steel, for the room to catch up. And sometimes, the room does. If this story moved you the way it moved me in the telling, leave a comment below. I'd love to know which moment hit you hardest. And if you believe that respect should never have to be earned twice by people who already gave everything once, share this with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe if you want. More stories like this one, told the way they deserve to be told, with honesty, with heart, and with the time they're owed.